Welcome to Generation Movie on a Monday night in January. My name is JW Colwell, joined as always by Rich Drees and Natasha Bogutzki. What are you reading? What are you put down the smut?
Not smut. Not
quality
smut.
material. Quality material.
Hey, happy Oscar nominations Eve to everybody who celebrates.
Yes, happy Oscar nominations Eve. I was just going to say that. Welcome to Generation Movie on this Monday night, this glorious Monday night in January. Before the three of us will be getting up at 8 o'clock to watch whatever morning show you choose to watch, where people will be on and they won't know what the fuck they're talking about. It was a joke. The smut thing was a joke. It was a Jesus Christ. It's already early. It was a joke I was playing. Anyway, welcome to Generation Movie. We do need to start on a sad note tonight. And before we get to The Love Witch, which, Rich and I just saw for the first time this weekend, before we get to this amazingly wonderful, incredibly feminine and wildly entertaining horror parody, maybe serious, whatever it is, it's an amazing movie.
I'd say more satire than that, but
satire is maybe a better word. Because I don't think it's like I don't know. We get into fights about spoofy or not. I think spoofy. I think airplane. I think top secret. So anyway, we do have to talk about some tragic news. Good evening, Ken McKernan. Good that you're getting better.
Hi, Ken.
I know you have a big doctor's appointment tomorrow. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Get those meds straight. Otherwise, you can't come and watch our shows every week. We do have to talk about the passing of Norman Jewison. And here's my sad thing for sometimes when people die. The headline is Norman Jewison, Moonstruck director, dead at 97. And the sad thing about that for me, Rich, is that, I'm sorry, Moonstruck is a fine film and garnered, audience attraction and plenty of things. But that is not the movie I remember Norman Jewison for. Norman Jewison was one of the great directors with regards to racial divides in this country. He directed In the Heat of the Night, which is one of the absolute most fantastic Best Picture winners and most important films in the history of films for bringing an African-American actor into the forefront. Also directed A Soldier Story and also directed Fiddler on the Roof and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar, for the other side. As somebody also mentions in the comments, Agnes of God. So, he did have a very spiritual side to some of his films, but he also directed
wacky comedies,
which was great. I would say And Justice for All is probably my favorite film of his.
An incredible satire of the judicial system. That's also really kind of lays bare how horrible the judicial system is and the justice system is. I go back to In the Heat of the Night. I mean, I think that's one of those movies where once you see it, you can't unsee it, and once you see it, he was such an important director. But Moonstruck is the one that keeps on coming up with everybody, and Moonstruck is great. It's good. It's got a great performance from Cher. It's got a really good screenplay, and it's it was a big, huge hit. It is one of the films that almost saved MGM, in the 80s. So I understand that.
May I?
Let's all go ahead.
I think part of it is Moonstruck is considered now to be a modern day classic, which means for the younger generations, which is what I'm here to be the voice of, they're more liable to watch Moonstruck because it's easier and more easily accessible to them than it is to hunt down something like In the Heat of the Night.
I tend to agree with you. You were saying favors of And Justice for All is great. I'm going to go out of turn on this one. My favorite Norman Jewison film is this little movie this gem of a sci-fi dystopian future film called Rollerball. Rollerball is such a good movie. It's such a
2002.
What?
That was the remake. The remake, which is a roiling piece of crap.
I didn't know it was a remake of anything.
Oh yeah,
that's a remake. It's a bad movie. The movie that Jewison made in the 70s, the original Rollerball, is James Caan at his James Caaniest. And it's just, it is a fantastic movie. It's great. It's great Con, not Con, but Con. It's fantastic. Some comments. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Joe.
Evening, Joe.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sean. Good to see you back.
Evening, Sean.
Forgot to add earlier, JW Killing the Network. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you, Joe. Everybody's going to be killing it on the network. You also directed Agnes of God. I think he did. He was. That's the other thing. The really in the thing in these little Ken writes Pluto TV is honoring Moonstruck and In the Heat of the Night.
That's
JB
a quick
Earl,
turnaround because
that's a fast turnaround.
Yeah. Oh, hey, JB.
How's it going?
JB is a wonderful cameraman, cinematographer extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Excellent work, JB.
Yeah.
New person, welcome. And then I would choose Rollerball over Moonstruck. Rollerball's an acquired taste. I understand that. And JB says hi again. But I think the interesting thing for me is these great directors that we are going to start losing, right, Rich? Mm. They are going to be kind of whittled down to 2 or 3 movies, right? Like
in those headlines, yeah.
In the headlines. So it's an interesting, say we were to lose, say something horrible, say we're going to lose somebody like Scorsese or Coppola, or how do you whittle them down? Do you know what I mean? And I think, Jewison was 99.
Is just the Godfather, and that's it.
Coppola's just the God.
Is just
Go ahead.
Godfather.
Scorsese's going to be Goodfellas and The Departed. Those are going to be the main 2 ones mentioned for him.
I would have thought Taxi Driver, but
maybe Taxi Driver will be on that list too. But Goodfellas will top Taxi Driver.
I think Goodfellas will too.
Trust me, I know that the difficulty in trying to fit enough, a certain amount of information into a headline that conveys something, but also wants you to get the people to read the actual full-length article. Especially with something like an obituary. The problem is
I think
obituaries get linked onto Facebook, Twitter, and all the other socials, but no one ever clicks through to read the full thing.
And that's the thing. I think Jewison is one of those cases. Jewison is one of those cats where you go, wow, the breadth and the depth of it. He was very had a lot of racial integration movies, and he also had a lot of God affirming movies, and he also he
works in a couple of different modes.
It's a real eclectic. He was a Doris Day director as well. He directed a lot of Doris Day movies when he first started his contract out. So it's started out in television, worked his way through. I think it's really interesting, where you kind of when you look at a filmmaker like him, where he had a lot of hits and some misses. He also directed The Russians Are Coming, which is a fantastic Alan Arkin movie.
That was his second film, wasn't it?
Yes.
After Wait Until Dark.
Yes.
He did Wait Until Dark?
No, Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin.
Norman Jewison.
We're jumping around a little bit. Oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. But I think just the idea that the older directors, I think it's really interesting. The newer directors tend to get stuck in a genre, and they make almost all their movies there. Older directors bounce around to a lot of different things, unless you get a director a newer director like Fincher or Nolan, who's bouncing around to a bunch of different it wasn't that way for a while. You know what I mean? And I think...
Can you imagine Nolan trying to do a romantic comedy?
It'd be weird.
You want to talk about jumping around.
It'd be weird. Well, Nolan is one of those people, and I've talked to Rich about this. I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but I will say it on the podcast again. everyone, like, I know everybody loves Nolan, but Nolan is not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm a Spielberg guy. I've been a Spielberg guy my entire life. And while I can witness the artistry of a Christopher Nolan film, I think there are times when he is cold to the subjects. So he doesn't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, and I think he found his way around and out of it with Oppenheimer in a sense, because he had this eclectic group of actors that were just, they broke through it. So it became a much more interpersonal film, because you had Emily Blunt and you had, you have Cillian Murphy and you have Robert Downey Jr. and you have, Matt Damon and all these people. They made it like a lot of Nolan's films have one or two people in them and then they kind of whatever. But Jewison is a great example of a director that worked really hard, understood that, the movies had to make money. And also, directed. How many directors, like, how about you say Christopher Nolan romantic comedy? How about a Christopher Nolan musical?
Well, musicals don't sell anymore.
Well, that's bullshit too. But anyway, that's trash, hot trash. But what I would say, I know you're joking. I know you're being facetious. But the interesting thing is, like, could Nolan direct a musical? Could Nolan direct Fiddler on the Roof? Or Jesus Christ Superstar? I don't know that he would try. I don't know that he would want to. And I think Jewison was a director that had so many things that, it appears they were issues he really cared about. And then he also realized that Hollywood is about making money. So you make a Moonstruck here or there. You give Cher her best performance of her life, and you merrily go on the way. And that's the movie that is at the top of the list for a lot of people, which is, it's so intriguing to me. Let's see. We also have, he says thanks, but that's about it. But so rest in peace, Norman Jewison. Thank you for all the movies you've given us.
Yes.
We had the pleasure of doing In the Heat of the Night in last year's Oscar Decade Cavalcade, which was a tremendous thing that we did on the show that I can't imagine we would ever try to do again. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from, well, anyway, we'll talk about it towards the end. That's what we call foreshadowing, kids. Anyway, let's get into this, because, so Rich, this was the first time you saw this, right?
Yes. And
it was also
surprised.
The first time I saw it, and I was also, I was in awe of the movie. We're going to talk as we progress, but the movie we're doing tonight is Love Witch. It's directed by a woman named Anna Biller. It is, I don't know that you can explain it in a synopsis. I don't know that that works, because the movie is so much more than that. It's almost a state of mind. It looks and feels and acts differently from any movie that's been made 2017 or later. Would you kids both agree with that? It looks and performs as a totally different animal.
Can I at least try to give it some kind of summation here?
Good.
What's the log line?
Log line is a young woman moves into a new town. She is a professed practicing witch, and as soon as she shows up, some guys just start dropping dead.
That's a
but I think what's even more
that was
important.
Terrible.
That is not what you're flying on a poster. I said a log line.
Copywriting poster nonsense.
Let me try. This is good.
What's important about this is, and this leads right into what we're going to talk about first with production, is Biller is just aping pitch perfectly the look of 1960s, early 70s Hammer horror films and Italian giallo films. And if it weren't for the fact that every now and then you see like a modern car and there's like
cell phone.
One time you see a cell phone. If you were just watching the movie and you forget that this was a movie that was released in 2016, it's understandable because it's absolutely perfect in how it looks like it was shot, you know, in 1970.
Natasha, before you do your log line, can I try one to see how I do?
Please, go ahead.
And then you can do yours, because I know yours is going to be better because it's something you love and you're going to bring, like, it would like me doing a log line for Raiders. Anyway, what I would say is it's the tale of a young witch who leaves a trail of men who do not meet her needs with regards to loving her for what she deserves. And chaos ensues in every sense of the word.
Mm.
No? What's your log line, Natasha?
She wants to be loved, and there is. Wait, damn! I was working on this an hour ago.
It's going to be great. And then Rich ruined it. I know it was Rich and I ruined it.
She wants to be loved no matter how many bodies she leaves in her wake.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, that's very succinct. I think, Rich hit on it. The most interesting aspect of the production. First off, I want to talk about something that I was not able to find, and I don't know if you guys did any research, what research you did, but it's something I was not able to find in anywhere, Rich. I cannot find the budget of this movie.
I was looking for that just this afternoon, and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Nowhere. And one of the things I'm going to say to you is, if I think this is her being really coy about it, but if it were any other director, I don't know how much this movie cost, but if it was any other director, if it was a male director, a male narcissistic director, I think he would have put up his credit card bills and he would have said all these different things. Because the most fascinating thing about this production for me is she does everything on this production. Mm-hmm. And not only does she do everything on the production, but is meticulous about everything on the production to the point that it looks like a lost Hitchcock film. And it's shot in such a way. And I was looking up the cinematographer that's responsible for the movie with her and who worked with her is M. David Mullen. He has apparently gotten a reputation around Hollywood as somebody who can focus in on a particular period of filmmaking and kind of copy it. He hasn't won any Oscars or anything. He has been nominated for Independent Spirit Awards, but it is uncanny how he shoots certain aspects of this movie, with like the idea that they're glamour shots, even like glamour shots from the photography from the 30s and 40s that focus in on a lead actress and just give her the full view of the camera. And even in the way like they create a kaleidoscope effect, which occurs a lot in this movie with regards to hallucinogenics. And it's just something where it's an amazing melding of two people, one who's trying to create something and somebody who is a perfect person that understands how to shoot it in exactly that style. It's the most fascinating part of the production.
Yeah, this is the guy who also shot Jennifer's Body, which definitely feels like an 80s film. And as JB is pointing out in the comments, he shot Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah, which is just, dripping with a period vibe. You can't watch that thing and not, understand that.
I love this movie. We pay special attention to the lighting and lensing on this film. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about, JB.
Incredible.
And then he shot the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But I think what's fascinating about it is that they're working lockstep. And, and then you start reading up that she also edited it, also wrote the score, also, like, there is not a piece of the movie where she isn't in charge.
Yeah. There's pieces of music in there. I'm sorry, go ahead, Natasha.
I think you and I were going for the same thing.
Okay. I was going to say that there are pieces of music in there, especially like there's one piece early on that really just sounded like European library music from Cinecittà, in Italy.
That is not where I was going. But
you weren't going for Cinecitta, Natasha? How could you?
It's Chinatita.
Chinatita. Anyway.
Sorry, you should know better by now. But there's actually Chinatita. But there's a bit of music later on in the beginning of the third act where what's her name? Trish finds the stuff. You know what stuff I'm talking about if you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like a rip or riff on the shower sequence music from Psycho.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The interesting thing is this movie, it's like a movie that's lost in time, but it's also the only way it gets lost in time is if it's absolutely pitch perfect in every aspect of the production. And, even the costume design and it like Rich was saying, there's only two things that took me out of the moment for whatever. Like there's a car that looks really new. And then there's one sequence where somebody's on the cell phone going, you forgot your ring. But everything else is completely of the moment of late 60s, early 70s. And because we did the Hammer horror films, the way, I'll give you a perfect example, Rich, of something I was thinking about today. The way it's shot with the boob scenes, and there are a lot of boob scenes for anybody who's concerned going in. If you go, hey, is this Love Witch? Is it like?
And I watch it in front of the kids.
Don't watch it in front of the kids. It'll be almost as uncomfortable as watching Saltburn with your kids. What I found fascinating was the Hammer hair over the boobies thing that we talked about in all the Hammer movies, where the actress's hair or hair pieces or whatever was designed to go right to the edge, and she does it as well, and it's an amazing thing because it's right next to somebody who's totally nude, so it shifts my eye from the totally nude person to the person that has hair. It's an amazingly shot film. And I'll give you another thing that makes you think of other movies, and it really got me going. The idea of when she's driving, it is right out of Psycho. It looks like Psycho, The Birds. It looks like any number of classic Hitchcock films or whatever. And I just think
Victorian tea room reeks to me of a little bit of Stepford Wives meets Picnic at Hanging
Giallo. It reminded me of Suspiria and Giallo, and it reminded me everybody in the exact same outfits with weird hats. It just. And then this is another.
Honestly, that formality felt like Hammer to me, because in the 60s they were doing that throwback Edwardian thing anyways in fashion. So this movie still could have been set in the 60s, and it's still contained that 60s vibe by doing that echo of Victoriana.
The most glorious culty status of it is that you can watch this movie and you go, I don't know when the fuck it was made. If you don't have a thing on your screen that tells you it was made in 2016, I don't know that you could tell, except for when phones and stuff show up. I would also say the other thing that the production kind of takes, the screenplay is very, that it requires the actors to be presentational. It requires the actors to be I would love to get my hands on the screenplay, because I would love to see if all the close-ups and everything were she had them in her mind first, or it was something when they got on the set, they were just putting things up and being able to go, this is going to be a close-up. And then, it's an amazing production that she is wholeheartedly in charge of. And then she makes really interesting picks with the actor she gets. Samantha Robinson as Elaine is amazing. I would also say Laura Waddle as Trish is pretty great. And then everybody else, Rich, and this is a really deep dive. Everybody else in the Coven reminds me of, do you remember the movie called The Sentinel?
I remember the TV show with Richard Burgi.
No. The Sentinel was was a 70s horror film that not unlike that. It was in the same vein. They were trying to get the same crowd for as The Exorcist, and it's just this weird movie with weird people in it all over the place. And the Renaissance Fair / Coven is just the most eclectic bunch of actors I've ever seen chosen that get full screen time. And by full, I mean full frontal screen time for a lot of that. Like, it's just, it's uncanny. But I'm amazed that we don't know how much this movie costs. Because I feel if it was a male director, he'd be screaming it from the rooftops.
It's funny that you bring that up in a way, because today is the 30th anniversary of the premiere of Clerks at
I was thinking about it the whole day. I was trying to find the fucking budget
Smith,
all day.
I actually used a Clerks reference today, and I didn't know that.
Well, everybody
you weren't supposed to be. You weren't supposed to be there today or something.
No, I used the. This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers.
That's absolutely true.
That's also
true. Another thing that often gets discussed. Again, she does the entire costume design, the color palette. I would imagine that includes all the clothes she that Elaine wears personally, because the way things are set up, Elaine's outfits all have interior motives to them. So like they're dark on the outside, light on the inside, which creates the whole moment with the kaleidoscope.
Mm-hmm.
Natasha?
I did hear that some of the costume pieces were sourced vintage Gunny Sacks dresses. Now, I don't know if anyone here knows exactly what that means, but Gunny Sacks 1970s dresses are very, very expensive. They're very kind of like peasant, folkish, 70s empire waist that kind of has this Edwardian cut to them. I happen to have two myself. But
of course you do. I have one over here in my closet as well.
But they can range anywhere from $150 at their I need fixing range to go all the way up to $1,000 a pop.
So that's interesting, but like I said, because she's costume designer, because it seems so thrifty, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't change the fact. And Rich, you and I watch movies all the time. This movie looks like it cost in 1971 about $30 million to make. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a deep dive thing for Rich and I. But if I say a movie cost $30 million in 71 to make, that's an expensive movie for 71.
Oh, I don't know if I'd say that much, but yeah, it looks like if this was actually, made in the period it is emulating, then definitely, it would look, in the low double-digit millions.
Yeah, upper tier.
And I don't think she spent that much in 2016 dollars, though.
I think
no, but like I said, I think the most interesting thing, also aside from that she did everything right, is that I couldn't find the budget anywhere, nowhere, and I feel like
that's gonna bug him.
Well, it bugs me. It bugs me. It doesn't bug me for the reason you think it bugs me. It bugs me because I feel that male directors, if they put their entire credit cards, they do all these things, and they put their entire life on line for their movies. Yeah. They get praised, and I feel like she did the exact same thing, and I think it's wonky that she's hiding what it is, because I think somebody would say something snotty to her. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm much more inclined. I would like her to scream from the rooftop, "Hey, I spent $6 million on this movie that looks," or whatever, or 200,000, whatever it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't mean it as a negative. I mean it as a positive. Yeah. I feel like male directors bitch about how much their movies look and cost to make all the time, and I don't think female directors do, because unlike her, most female directors are just happy to be directing their movies sometimes, so they don't scream about their budgets or anything. And I think it's a mistake. I think they should be able to bitch about, like, say, what Nolan bitches about, and what she should be able to scream from the rooftops that, hey, I put this on my Amex, and lo and behold, it worked.
Well, here's
That's
something
Go ahead.
Here's something that I was thinking about. For example, the costuming. I know that the Renaissance costumes were actually created for the film, but everything else, a lot of it is sourced vintage, which means if you have a lot of people who you're friends with who may run vintage shops or whatever, she may have rented items. They may have loaned her things, at which point she gave them, maybe they were borrowed from private collections. And so maybe her amount to make this movie isn't as much as you think, because you may have been calling in favors from friends, or putting the money where it needed to go for certain things and then calling in favors on others. So if the movie only cost, say, $100,000 to $200,000 to make, which I doubt it definitely looks like it's probably got a $500,000 to $1 million budget, but and that's on the low ball end.
That's on the low end. I agree with you. I think, but what I'm saying to you is,
I think there is, if she puts that out there into the world, she's going to get a lot of shit from those directors who is like, well, I financed everything myself and I put up all of my cash. And she's like, yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Well, but
that's
would
possible,
not be
okay. I mean, for example, let's go back to the Kevin Smith example here really quick. That him, saying I sold my comic book collection and, for credit, then I sold the credit to all my friends to partly finance this movie. I put the rest on credit cards, is part of that Horatio Alger storyline that Kevin Smith mythos has about just registered jockey from New Jersey who decided to make a film about his job.
Friends and family are as all in as I am. Right.
However, I don't think Biller wants that to be the focus of the narrative around her film. I think she wants people discussing the film, not the circumstances on how it became a film. And that's fine. If she would rather us focus on, the themes that she's dealing with the film, or, even kind of breaking down like the irony of using, a Hammer style of a horror film style in relationship to what she's talking about, things like that. If that's what she'd rather us focus on, I'm all for that. Sometimes I don't think, just knowing what a budget is fair. I mean, it's interesting for me, as we produce short films, go, oh wow, they really stretch their dollars there to get this thing on the screen. But I was thinking of it. I think you're right. I was thinking of it as more of a heroic. What paintbrush she bought for it, No,
I understand. I was just thinking of it as more of a heroic thing, because I think what she's done is, from a production standpoint, astounding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. It absolutely is.
Gorgeous.
And I would be interested, but that's kind of secondary too.
It's a weird thing. It's one of the few movies, Rich, that we've ever done on the show that I couldn't find a single mention of budget anywhere. Anywhere. And it's not going to bug me. It is what it is. But it's bugging me. Okay. Because I think I'm proud that she was able to, whatever she pulled off, whatever it was.
Thank you. We forgot to mention that.
What did we forget to mention?
Pull up the comment.
Oh, yes. It's shot on 35mm film. So when you were saying it's interesting, okay, we didn't mention
that. And edited entirely on a cut negative.
35mm film, yeah. Which I would say to Natasha, if I have my math correct, the last time I was looking at 35 films that were shot on 35 millimeter movie. A 2-hour movie shot on 35 millimeter film leads me to somewhere at least, I'm going to say $200,000 to $500,000 just on film stock.
Meaning she
like,
took a bunch where it was more important? Yes.
But that would be my guess. So when you said 500 to a million lowball, I was looking at the film stock thing as I'm looking at like 250 to 500,000 just because it's a 2-hour movie. You got to figure they shot what, maybe 4 hours of material, takes and whatnot.
And the question is also how many people did she hire who brought along their own equipment instead of having to rent equipment? Ain't that right, JB?
Let's talk about box office. This is also a rare film that we look at, that the box office and international box office is dramatically low. $281,063. The total, and we're also going to take into account the amount of money it's made on DVD and Blu-ray since it came out in 2017, and you're looking at $489.01. So you're looking at a movie that's made probably about $1 million total for streaming, Blu-ray, DVD, and film things. But that is not the story here. The story here is it is the birth of a cult film, right? This is a movie that up until a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when you and I started discussing your film curation visit to us, it's a movie I'd never seen or heard about or known about or even fathomed a guess at what it was. I'm sure I've passed it on streaming sites and whatnot, but it's not something I'd ever think about. And so I think the interesting thing here is that this box office, this Blu-ray, this DVD, the story it tells is this is the birth of a cult film that is just now kind of making its way in and around film circles, and like Natasha's cape getting ready to envelope the entire film culty status.
My heat is not working right now, so I have a little space heater going, and I'm wearing the cape. I was planning on taking the cape off to really show off my outfit, but I'm freezing my ass off. So yeah.
I'm sorry. I saw you moving the cape, and I'm like, yeah, it's like a film. You know, it's kind of, the box office isn't. Yes, the box office isn't. How very you're coughing right now of you. That's what I tell the kids. The new thing they tell kids in schools is to cough like this, and what I say to the nephews is cough like you're Dracula. You know, like anyway. That's a quality joke, by the way. Kids love it. Anyway, I think the interesting thing here is it's the birth of a box office, like from great failures sometimes, or movies that don't have great box office. You have to see it. You have to watch it. It's a cult status thing. The low numbers on this movie, it just belies the fact that it's starting to come into its own. Like we're definitely going to have Love Witch screenings, and you know, like it's definitely going to happen. People dressing up as the Love Witch, like Natasha.
Well, I've already started seeing a bit of a cult following. I've started hearing about this thing being screened. People, hot girls using it as on TikTok as like Halloween costumes for brunettes. I've seen film sites who are like, okay, let's look at just the history of, say, blue eyeshadow in film, where you would have things like X, Blue Velvet, The Love Witch, and just kind of seeing how fashion and film and lighting and costume all come together to work as one. So there definitely is a following, and I think 2018, the Me Too movement really helped get the numbers up on this movie.
Well, first off, I'm sorry I offended anybody with the joke about Dracula. No, the kids don't like the joke. My kid's right here, and she said it ain't funny. Okay. The two little boys in my house want to be Dracula. I can't help. It's easier to get them to go like this. Anyway, okay. But if your kid doesn't like it, I'm sorry. No worries. Weird.
Show is so off the rails today.
I think it's funny. Thank you, JB. I appreciate you. I'm trying to get 6 and 7-year-old boys to do the right thing. Looking like Dracula is, they like Universal monsters. Anyway, I think the interesting thing here is, I think you're right. I think the buzz is out there. It's growing for this movie, and the box office total, which sometimes for us on this show is a way to say, hey, did this movie hit immediately and right out of the gates? It's important. It's there. Or is it something where it's a cultivated thing? And I think for this movie, the box office story that's told is that, the receipts you see from the Blu-rays, DVDs, streaming are where it's starting to pick up its build. And now you might see a screening in LA or a screening in a repertory theater. And let's see. Been searching for budget. None of her projects have a budget listed, and she seems to like period movies. Interesting, Ken. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My kid is 7. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend. Is she scared? Is she scared of Dracula? Okay. I don't know what it is. How about a cape? Natasha, do a cape. Do a cape thing. Yeah. How about that? She could be a witch. Witches are cool. Witches and Draculas are cool. Aren't witches and Draculas cool anymore? I don't know. Anyway, I'm in my head. So anyway, I think the box office, the low box office totals, the story it tells is that this is an up and coming movie that's about to become a cult movie that we talk about for years because of its production, because of all of the things. And I don't want to give a short shrift. Critical response now and then. I think the critical response then was good. I think the critical response tonight on the show is going to be good. I think the things that are going in this movie, we use Rotten Tomatoes as only as an aggregate. But as of tonight, it is 95% with critics. And here's an interesting thing with over 2,500 ratings. Cinema audience score is 61%. And what I would say is people who are not in the know are stumbling on it and not getting what the three of us get out of it. And that's okay too.
So I had someone watching the movie with me who is roughly my age over the last 2 days, because I watched an hour last night and an hour today. It wasn't for them. I don't think they quite understood the satire and all the little references. The presentational style can be, even for me, especially for me, can be extremely fucking cringy.
Well, I'll give you an example of something that your friend might have seen. Like, the presentational style also makes weird things happen. Like, there's a sequence where Trish is really upset and there's a cake involved, and she takes a piece of cake off the table and she walks all the way around and sits down, and then Trish comes all the way around. And it's just this, it's very specific of what it's trying to do. And it's if you haven't seen anything like it, again, I'll give you the Hammer horror films. If you haven't seen, because we were trying to save the youth in the 60s, hair covering boobies, right? It is weird to have it like.
My eyes go back in my head.
Why? For what? Because it said booby?
just the idea of trying to save the
Well,
youth.
that's what I mean. Like, it's like they're trying to hide it in the same scene as somebody's totally nude. So I can see somebody watching it who might be a normie and who goes, what are they trying? Like, why is her hair always perfectly where it is? Do you know what I mean?
Whereas that's my brain going, oh, that actor has a nudity clause. Duh.
or or Biller is trying to specifically get exactly how Hammer horror films put females into a gaze, right? Into how females were looked at. Like, you know, Christopher Lee is fully clothed in every horror film he's in. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think the things that are going on at the heart of it, you know, you had Love Me, you know, the idea that she flips around the male gaze and then it becomes the female gaze when she sees a guy coming into frame and she immediately focuses on him. And, you know, it's interesting to do that topsy-turvy because for years it's been the male cameraman focusing on a female and then, you know, not getting anything. You know what I mean?
A lot of what I really love about this movie is also the power involved with femininity, and that sexuality is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of being a woman. It's nothing to be scoffed at. It is something that we should be able to use and not be ashamed of.
And the idea that we can't, and we don't get it.
Yeah.
The idea that we don't get love or sex or any of it.
And I love
it is great.
The idea of paganism is just connecting to nature, and to connect to nature, you have to be able to accept all parts of you, including the parts that the other parts of the world has either shamed you for or has made you feel that is ugly, putting extra issues on your back that don't belong there. Like the husband before he died was like, oh, she's ugly and fat, so she loses all this weight, and now all of a sudden she's desirable. But yeah, fuck you, man. You didn't love her to begin with. You don't deserve her.
Well, also she missed 3 dinners. I don't know if you got that part of the message was that she was late on 3 dinners as well. There is a fascinating moment in the movie that I think really sets the movie apart in a sense, because I was thinking about it, and I don't know if Rich was thinking about it. There is a line of dialogue. There's a witch bottle created. A witch bottle is something a witch creates to bond with somebody that's passed, and she puts her essence. She puts her essence into it. There's a line in this movie that's absolutely hilarious in the sense that do you realize that most men have never seen a used tampon?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it.
Saw that, and they were like, "Wait, we've seen them. Like you've both been married."
Yes, but I think it's one of those things. I was thinking about it. I probably have, but it's not something I've ever thought about. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I probably have, you know what I mean? But today it made me think, it made me consider everything. So I think the most interesting thing about this, one of the more interesting things critically about this movie is, 1, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. 2, it perfectly assimilates any of the past movies that she's trying to get. You know, if you're a film fan, it hits your brain in waves. And the other thing is, it asks really tough questions of what sex is, what love is, what the idea that of the bondage we put women into for no reason, right? The idea that you're married and then you're stuck and then you can't do anything. And Trish's character is one of those characters. She thinks she's doing everything right as a wife, right? You know, she gives him a certain amount of love, and then she, you know, he gets what he gets, and then the rest, he's got to love me for me. You know, of course, Trish doesn't understand her husband, right? And is kind of the opposite of Elaine, in that Elaine is a fully functional, sexual being plus everything that's going on in the movie. And I found that particular question fascinating. Do you realize most men have never seen a used tampon? And it was like, no, we're not looking for them. And I think it's not only are we not looking for them, but it's just something we don't think about.
There's
and it's
a lot of interesting little
really interesting
through this movie. One of the things that really irks me, but I still like eat it up, is there is this section in a bar where where two of the witches are talking with Elaine and two new recruits into their coven. These
Moon and Star, baby. Moon and Star, worst dancers I've ever seen.
And they're talking about how it is to be a woman and how sexuality is a power and how they need to embrace it. And the thing that's driving me nuts is the head of your coven, the one who is talking all of this and praising and hallelujah to the goddess, is a man. Who
and not the best looking of men. I would, for Rich, he's not the best looking of men. I'm not saying I look great. I'm not saying Rich looks great. I'm just saying this particular guy looks like he walked in from Woodstock in the 70s. And
he gives me cult vibes.
Yeah, he gives me like he's going to be offering me Kool-Aid next week. I think the most interesting thing is she asks all these questions. And for me, I'm a horror movie fan. So, I was also wonderfully enjoying the idea that we have, she's playing with the femme fatale stereotype. She's also playing, but this character tells everybody exactly what she's going to do. You're going to fall madly in love with me. The guys do it. They have sex. And then she breaks them and then discards them. And
they get overwhelmed by their
because
feelings.
they can't handle it. Fascinating. It's a fascinating.
They get overwhelmed by their feelings, and that causes them to break down, which I think is an interesting comment. I know there have been times in my life where I have not been as in touch with my feelings, maybe as I would hope I am now. And I think it's
enlightened is the word. Enlightened, Rich. Trying to be enlightened and better. Trying to be a better man.
I will admit I have had situations long in my past where I have been with men and then all of a sudden, holy shit, they flip a switch and it's like I can't get them away from me. And
the clingy vibe is interesting. Yeah. They all get super clingy, super emotional.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually a thing.
Well, but it's a thing, and I don't think it's a thing that guys think about. I think for whatever reason, the interesting thing, if you're a man watching this movie, and first off, if you don't have any of the subtext of like how great it is as a composite feature of other movies, if you're watching it and you've never had the moment where you've broken down or had something happen or whatever, it's just one of those things where we are constantly, what we see in the stories we tell and everything men directors tell are that women are clingy or women get too close or women only want marriage or all this other junk. And I think the fascinating thing here is Biller takes all, like, she gives you every answer that you ever wanted and maybe not the answer you did want and puts it into the movie. And I think my other fascinating thing as a horror film, one of the things we always look for is not red herrings, but sort of where the thing is going. You see the pictures in the movie early. Mm-hmm. All the pictures in the house are telling you where this movie's going to end, how it's going to end, where it's going to go. I have a question for you, Natasha, and I just want to ask it.
Okay.
Because I think two of the movies you've picked are very much are very interesting in regards to being spectacularly for every gender should watch them, but I could easily see going to a Love Witch screening and having all women there, right? Going in and sitting in the theater and just being all of these women that have found this movie and just love it and laugh and enjoy it and enjoy the fashion and everything. In the same way, I could see a movie like American Psycho being all men of a certain age. I think it's interesting that as your curator for us, that, you know, giving us your ample talent for the show, that you've picked a movie that is very much, I could easily see on everybody's playlist if they're a guy. Because again, I told you the most terrifying conversation I had with someone very close to me was that American Psycho was on 24/7 when he was deployed. It's the most terrifying thing that was said to me.
Red flag.
And I'm like, oh my God, okay. And he's like, and I'm like, not everybody gets the satire, you know? And he's like, oh, I know. He goes, yeah, I know. And the same thing can be said here.
The women actually going to see The Love Witch, we understand it because we've been in that position. We have been in positions where we've been with someone and then all of a sudden they've flipped and they've become extremely clingy and they won't let go because and here's where it really plays into the idea of paganism and nature unlocking your power. Is that when you have, and it also kind of plays with a little bit of alpha, you know, dom sub relationships slightly, but more energy than actual physicality. A woman who is like that, who is powerful, who is sensual, who is mysterious, but who is willing to give you everything, it becomes a drug. You want more of it. You need it. You need to be adored. And just to have just a whiff of that adoration from a person who is so powerful, you will do anything for them. And it just how the detective says later on in his inner monologue that we love that mysterious, we love that feminine fantasy, that ideal, but then it starts to suffocate us. Well, guess what? We got to see what happens to a woman when a guy does it earlier on in the movie.
Well, and she does flip the entire Madonna and the whore thing on its head, right? I mean, she yes. Well, she is, like, Elaine as a character is capable of being both. She will cook dinner, but she will also, you know, like it's an amazing thing. Like I'm also fascinated by the moments in the movie where she's trying to play what she thinks men want, right? Like there's a whole sequence where she's like doing things where she thinks that's what the men want, but it only makes the men more enamored of her and also makes them more needy at the same time. So it becomes this whole thing where she's like, you know, she makes the guy dinner and then it's like, she's like, well, that's what my husband wanted. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it goes back to the clip where it's, you know, she's also, what I was also going to say is American Psycho in this, we are also dealing with an unreliable narrator in the sense that we start, as the movie progresses, we get more information, right? We get more information about Jerry. Jerry's the piece de resistance, right? The guy that she was in love with, but then, you know, the first kill, right? And I think that's really an interesting thing in that two of the movies you picked are movies that could be viewed as polarizing. But again, I think it's an interesting foray. It's such an incredible film in the sense of what it is, and then what it's talking about is so difficult and so concrete is amazing to me. Right? I mean, I think she's a really gifted filmmaker, is all I want to say.
I wish you would do more.
Well, it's funny because I have a note here about that. I took a look at her website. She just published a book called Bluebeard's Castle, which is a gothic horror piece. woman in peril, new wife, doesn't really know the husband kind of a story. And she says she's also been working on developing that as a feature. Now, yeah, it's been almost 8 years since she made her last film, and it shouldn't be taking her this long. And I dare say if this was a male director, it wouldn't be taking this long to get the financing for their next film. Hell, if I won the lottery tomorrow, if I won Powerball tomorrow or whenever the next, almost $1 billion jackpot is, I would gladly turn around and say, here's $20 million. Go make, Bluebeard's Castle.
Well, the Bluebeard thing was originally it became a book. I was reading up on that as well. It was originally a screen concept.
But she's still developing it as a movie, though.
Well, and the other thing she's working... Well, actually, before we leave critical, I do want to say this, because we jumped right into that. I do want to talk a little bit about... there was one champion of this movie, and I read the New York Times review from A.O. Scott. It's a great review. And it's... the review title, we're talking about things with Norman Jewison earlier. The review is, you can find it online, that The Love Witch, hell-bent on capturing your heart, which is absolutely perfect. And he starts by saying Love Witch is, among other things, a study in the color red. Elaine, whose vocation is succinctly captured in the title of Anna Biller's new film, is first seen driving from north into San Francisco in a bright red convertible. So he hits on all the different things with color, but the main thing I want to talk about with his old review is... But in any case, her glamour, in the old root sense that aligns the word with sorcery and enchantment, is impossible to resist. Miss Biller's movie, like its heroine, presents a fascinating, perfectly composed, brightly colored surface. What's underneath is marvelously dark, like life, like love itself. That's absolutely as perfect a review ending as you could get, because the movie, everything about the movie looks beautiful, but like love and everything about it, it's gory, and it's hard, and it's nasty at times. Legacy, you're right. I think I was reading about the Bluebeard thing, and then I was reading up on Bluebeard. Did you read up on Bluebeard at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I did, because I like doing those things. I couldn't find a budget, so I needed something else to talk about. Wow. That was a funny joke. Anyway, so I read up on the Bluebeard thing, and what I would say is when she talks about that, Bluebeard was a guy who basically took about 7 or 8 wives. It's based on a historical thing that happened. He took 7 or 8 wives. And the movie, I guess, was going to focus on either the 7th or 8th, who comes in and just wants to not get murdered, right? And I was thinking,
seems reasonable.
Well, I mean, to think about like Henry VIII, to think about Henry VIII and everything, where it's like, oh, I want a divorce. Well, let me kill her first. It's just, it's like that. And I was reading on it, I was like, that would be an amazing, because what she has with Elaine in The Love Witch, and I'm surprised. I'm going to be honest with you. Are you both surprised that we haven't gotten a sequel?
I don't want one
at all.
No,
I would agree. I agree with Natasha. I don't want one. This is perfect in what it's trying to do right in of itself. I don't think we need one.
I'm not saying I don't.
Obviously, the absolutely poor box office that it did. Granted, it was only on 22 screens. But still, I could see where Oscilloscope was probably not like, oh, let's crank out another one of these really fast.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think she could do a lot with this particular character.
She could.
I'm not saying she can't do more with something else, but I think she could do. I think a second Love Witch showing up out of It wouldn't shock me if it just kind of just drops one day. Like we look up and there's a Love Witch 2. Because
the beauty of what I've curated is, with the exception of
Own It. I love it. Own It. It's amazing. I love
With
that.
the exception of American Psycho, because that already happened. That franchise that should have never happened. Is that these movies are that I have chosen are specific individual stories. There is no franchise viability. And I'm okay with that. Why? Because these movies are lightning in a bottle. Obviously, you can say the same thing about American Psycho because American Psycho 2 was a flaming piece of garbage.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the idea that but what I would say is,
Love Witch
I
has
think
the possibility to expand the character. Whether or not you can recapture that lightning in the bottle again, do you want to test it and possibly ruin the life that the original has? And as an indie film, you're standing on a very, very, very thin thread.
Oh no, I'm saying I think it's feasible, and what I would also say is I think the legacy and franchise viability. It's not necessarily the Love Witch 2. For me, the legacy and franchise viability comes from her. Her whatever she decides she wants to release and put a stamp on. She's somebody now that I will look at and go, oh, there's an Anna Biller movie coming out. I need to make sure I'm on board on that early.
Yeah. Same.
I think that's an amazing position to be in. That not necessarily that you need that she is sort of her own franchise. And the way A.O. Scott says, the movie kind of plays like Biller, right? You hear all these things. There's an amazing Vice interview with her where she basically, talks about different things. And I really believe that she is an insanely gifted filmmaker that is a franchise of herself, right? They asked her at one point, right now there's a sense that cinema has lacked strong female characters as well as women behind the cameras. From your perspective, are things getting any better? And this was an older interview, like right around the time the movie came out. And she answers with, damn it, I lost it. No! Where did it? Okay. She writes, in cinema, things are definitely getting worse. Look at the movies in the early 30s. They have the strongest female characters we've ever seen. Then it starts getting a little worse in the late 30s and 40s. It starts getting conflicted in the 50s. In the 60s, it's all over. Female characters are all bad, especially femme fatale. She emerges very strongly in the 50s as an evil character. But in the 30s, she wasn't evil. She was someone you could have a lot of sympathy with because life was stacked against her. You still get these incredible heroines every once and again, but you get them less and less. Female characters that are strong can't be glamorous. And she has a keen sense of what a franchise, like, she is her own franchise. So she wrote a book. We're waiting for the next movie. And the movie that they also, there's a movie that she's supposedly working on too, right?
Yeah, the film version of Bluebeard's Castle.
No, but there's another one.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Wah, wah. As of 2020, this is, some notes. Next film in production is called The Face of Horror. So the book was published in October 2023, and she's apparently working on it, and it's by Verso Books. Want to give that a shout out. It might be something like she might be such a franchise that you can both go to see Anna Biller movies and read Anna Biller books. You know what I mean? And we're a smart film show. We can read books too.
One of the things that I absolutely love is where Samantha Robinson, who plays Elaine, our titular character, went on to the thing that she went on to do after The Love Witch. You guys know?
Yeah, drop it, go.
Oh yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, and like I said,
So I have a question for Rich, actually.
Okay, fire away.
Do you think you could see The Love Witch one day being shown at the New Bev?
oh, this movie has to be right up Tarantino's alley. Definitely, especially because there's probably a 35 millimeter print of it.
I wouldn't even be surprised if he had watched this and went, I need her in my movie. Get her on the phone.
Yeah, could
the
be.
only thing I would say about Tarantino would be, I just need to see her feet. Not enough feet in the movie for me.
You can see them in a couple of shots. They're just not close-ups.
That's not enough feet. But yeah, I could easily see this at the New Bev. I could easily see it getting programmed. I could easily see it getting programmed with, with a new wave feminist. Like, this movie kind of reminds me, you know what it reminds me a little bit of? A little bit of Catherine Bigelow when she announced that she could do anything that anybody else could do. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel Anna Biller could be trusted with a budget. She could be trusted with something that, that is her story. And I feel like actors would, once they get an idea, of what she's bringing to the table, and that's another thing you don't hear anything about. You hear about how much work she did in the movie. The only thing you don't really hear about is the actors that have come out of it. And there's no real talking about what kind of rehearsals they did or whatever. But she's a franchise all of her own. So we don't necessarily need a sequel to Love Witch, but I would like to see her do more movies. I'd like to see her touch. Like, if this is her touch on a 60s horror film, I'd like to see what she does with, a 70s thriller or an 80s, if that's what she wants to do.
Bluebeard's Castle sounds like it's something from like Hitchcock's Rebecca. So, think late 40s.
That's
that kind of a vibe.
So.
Well, and also
no. I mean, he could make it in the modern time, but still shoot it like it's 1940s, and I would be cool with that. Again, I would be totally. I won Powerball.
Well, yeah, I feel like the person that she. I don't think she necessarily ascribes to be Tarantino or Kevin Smith. I think she wants to be Hitchcock. I think Hitchcock is the one that she. Like, I feel she can make movies that ask really difficult questions of the people that are in the movies and the characters in the films and what it makes up and what it constitutes. And that would be perfectly fine by me, because this movie is outstanding and it asks difficult questions and it makes you think as a guy watching it. And it, it's really well done.
I got nothing else.
I got nothing. Yeah. I got nothing.
So what do we got next week?
It's like I'm holding up a swordy stabby thing, and there's a heart in my hand. Okay. Hey. But okay. So a couple things. Let's. Love Witch was this week. Next week we end our curation for Natasha. We don't know if she's going to stick around through what's next, but next week we end our curation with One Night in Miami, Regina King's fictional take on a play about Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Sam Cooke meeting the night that Muhammad Ali became the heavyweight champion of the world in a Miami hotel room, and all of the things and thoughts that these four really strong, amazing men had to deal with and what they were bringing to the table. And Regina King, as a female director, in her directorial debut, by the way, I should point out, where it's just a fantastic movie that asks really hard questions of our racial heroes, our people that have been, bathed in all of these, sports heroes, political heroes, musical heroes, and it's a great movie, and it's an excellent way to end our female director curation with Natasha. And then we get into something big, Rich. I don't know if we what are we getting into? It's important. It's always important. Well, we often get into, that is true. We often get into trouble. But It is that time of the year, and as it is Oscar Eve, we are 9 hours away from the Oscar nominations being announced.
9 hours and 12 minutes. Not that anybody's
9 hours and 12 minutes to be exact. That commercial break that goes on GMA before it happens. We, of course, Rich and I, are bringing back the Oscar Decade Cavalcade, which is one of our favorite things to do. We have picked a series of movies that'll be coming up in 2 weeks after we finish up with this wonderful thing. We are going to shorten it a little bit just because we have some things we want to do. But we have picked, I think, Rich,
What are you doing?
I would say, what?
Tell me, what are you doing? Tell me.
We haven't decided yet.
Oh.
We can't tell you right now. We can tell you offline, but that makes everybody come back next week. But the Oscar Decade Cavalcade is returning. We also have other stuff going on with the network. So for me, I will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. with Jerry and with Kyle. We'll be doing Loud and Nerdy. A lot of good things going on there. We may have some interesting people to introduce people to the network to. We may have a new show coming up I'm very excited about. I'm very excited, actually, because I'm going to help produce it. And then we have MegaCon coming up for me on February 4th, 1st to the 4th. I will be going and experiencing MegaCon for the first time as an Indie Escape Network creative reporter. I'm very excited about that. We are also, if you're a creative and you have a new indie movie trailer or commercial, or you want to talk about pitching a music album, anything, email it to us. We'll play it on an upcoming show like Generation Movie or Loud and Nerdy or the Sticky Microphone or whatever our new show is that might be coming in, say, 2 weeks. We're also going to be working on, because it's where creatives unite. The Indie Escape Network is where creatives unite. Rich is creative. Natasha's certainly creative. I'm a creative, theoretically. And we're going to try to make it. We're also working on helping out HauntCon. That's coming up in Daytona Beach. Second weekend, full weekend of February. So February 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th, I think it is. And then also, I want to throw this out there. You guys, your stretch of the woods, you guys up there in northeastern Pennsylvania, Comic-Con and Nerd Utopia is coming February 17th and 18th. Look for it at NEPA Comic-Con. It's co-hosted by the Fun Times Cosplay Crew and at Drive Inc. Man 83, hosted by the Moon Ballroom, which is, of course, on up in Dixon City, across from the wonderful Circle Drive-In, a place that is amazing, that I've had some great movie nights at in my lifetime. Natasha, where can people find you and what you're doing and what you're working on?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just search my name and I will pop up. I'm the only Natasha Bogutzki in the world. By the way, I really wanted to just say really quickly over to Joe, who just commented that he's queuing the movie up and he hadn't heard of it. It is a part of the Criterion Collection, but you can also find it streaming on Amazon Prime, Joe.
Yeah, for anybody. Yeah, Amazon Prime for that movie. Tubi, if you want to watch The Love Witch. If everybody has Tubi.
Or Peacock. It's on Peacock.
But I'm going to say Tubi, and here's why I'm going to say Tubi, Natasha.
Okay.
Tubi means that Biller is going to get money.
That is true. Go to Tubi.
Whatever it's being, go to Tubi. Because we have heard from many independent filmmakers, Tubi, if you're trying to help them make money, Tubi will get them the money that you want them so graciously to have. A couple things, finishing up, and then I'll get to Rich, because he's important. I collect Dracula. My kid is fine. Okay, good. I love the movie since it came out. Sean Smith, when I first started working as a butcher in the meat department, my manager tells us if we need to cough or sneeze, act like Dracula.
What
Took
have
over
you
the show.
done?
What have I done? Hey, did you see Ankh's The Fortuitous and Talisman of Souls? No, but I am interested in it. It is from the same Oscilloscope production company. And then Joe is queuing up One Night in Miami. I haven't heard of it. It's really great. It's Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. Jim Brown is just, it's right before he starts filming movies.
I have one
ahead.
last question for you containing The Love Witch.
Thanks, great episode. Go ahead.
Does this belong in Arrow? You know how
Belong where?
Criterion, Arrow puts out a
Oh.
lot of cult films.
Yeah, I think
could see this as an Arrow release.
I could see it as an Arrow release. I could see it as
I could
a
see it as a
Shout Factory
Criterion
release.
release.
And a
frankly.
Criterion release. Again, a young
Arrow.
finding. I think it could be anywhere. It is. The thing is, it's not her first movie, but the funny thing about it is, it might as well be her first movie because it's the movie that everybody talks about for her. So, what I would say is, anytime you have the announcement of a talented person like this come along, it's great that they should get it out there for it to be seen. I was a backer for Onks. Okay. And then, hello, have Cheetah will view. Pleasure to see you. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Rich, where can people find you? What are you working on?
Well, working on a bunch of Oscar related stuff that we're going to start rolling out. Hopefully even tomorrow after we report on the Oscar nominations tomorrow morning. And that's going to be at filmbuffonline.com. You can follow us also on Facebook and get links to all of our stuff there. Additionally, I do a second podcast with my very good friend, Natasha Bogutzki. And we will be dropping our next episode tomorrow evening because we'll be recording it tomorrow afternoon. And that's going to be our initial first reactions to the Academy Award nominations as they are announced in 9 hours and 5 minutes. And so you can find that at also at filmbuffonline.com. We have a little thing on the front page that will take you to bigpicturepod.com, which is our Big Picture Podcast is the name of our podcast. You can also find me on socials on Twitter, not X, and Blue Sky at FilmBuffRich.
Okay, so a couple things. Have Cheetah Will View says, hello, Natasha and Indie Gurus. I like Indie Gurus, but I don't like that we don't have names. But anyway, it's cool. You can find me, of course, JW the Movie Guy on I'm going to say Twitter, not X either, because fuck him. I'm on Threads, JW the Movie Guy, Facebook, JW the Movie Guy, Instagram, JW the Movie Guy. I am not on TikTok because nobody wants to see a fat guy dance. I mean, they might, but it's not for the right reasons. And so you can find me there. You can also find me on this network every Monday night with my good friend Rich Drees, and occasionally a love witch loving Natasha Bogutzki. And you can find me on Tuesday nights on the same network on Loud Nerdy with my good friends Jerry and Kyle. Thank you for joining us tonight. Next week, one night in Miami. And then the Oscar Decade Cavalcade begins. It's a little bit shortened, but we have reasons. You're going to have to deal with them. Thanks for leaving your Christmas lights up, Natasha. Don't encourage this. Don't encourage this.
It's staying up for quite a while.
Don't encourage this, JB. Don't. Thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody have a great week. Go see a movie. Lots of good things. Origin's going to go out bigger this week, so that's the movie I'm looking forward to. I'm also getting the Zone of Interest. We're also getting the Zone of Interest down here, so I'm going to try to do Origin in the Zone of Interest and not come out crying and just weeping for life and then thinking about this year's political races.
You're not doing Godzilla -1 in black and white?
I'm going to save that because I think I'm going on the weekend to say Godzilla -1. First off, it's not Godzilla. It's not Godzilla -1.
Minus color there.
Yes. Say it properly. Say it right. My lights are still up too. We're going to encourage this. Merry Christmas.
And
what better note to end this show?
A perfect note to end the Love Witch show. Merry Christmas. Because it's all red and green. Thanks for joining us. Everybody have a great week. We'll see everybody next